Yes, certainly, because of tomorrow. Yep.
My lords, as leader of your lordship's house, it is one of my sadder duties, though perhaps a privileged one, to lead tributes in your lordship's house. Today I rise to pay tribute to the late Earl of Listowel, who sadly died yesterday afternoon. Lord Listowel, my lords, or Billy as he was affectionately known to his many friends in your lordship's house, had recently joined the very distinguished band of your lordships, active into their 90s. He succeeded his father as long ago as 1931 and took his seat in the following year. This made him the longest serving active member of our house. He thus, my lords, had the distinction of having been a member of your lordship's house for 65 years. If I may suggest, my lords, few can equal his record of service to this house. I should also record that he also had the distinction of being the longest serving member of the Privy Council, having been appointed to that body in 1946. My lords, Lord Listowel had an unusual career. Having gained experience in local government both before and after the Second World War, he served in Sir Winston Churchill's government from 1944 to 1945 as Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for India and Deputy Leader of your Lordship's House. He then served as Postmaster General, as Secretary of State for India and for Burma, as Minister of State for the Colonies, and as a Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. He was also Governor-General of Ghana from 1957 to 1960. Ghana was, as your lordships will know, was the first African nation to achieve independence from the United Kingdom, and as Governor-General, Lord Listowel saw this fledgling nation through its first heady days of independence. I venture to suggest to your lordships that there can be few members even of this august house who can record such a varied and distinguished record as a minister and servant of the Crown. My lords, Lord Listowel also had a remarkable career in your lordship's house as well. He was, as your lordships will remember, chairman of committees from 1965 to 1976. At the start of his term of office, he oversaw a major reorganization of the administration of this house. For the first time, the Administration Committee operated as an executive body, and for the first time, an executive, rather than merely an honorary black rod, was appointed. This period also saw valuable additions to your lordship's facilities. The dining room was extended, and infill building work took place in State Officers' Court, providing a considerable amount of new accommodation. My lords, as chairman of committees, Lord Listowel spent many hours on unopposed bill committees following the passing of the Local Government Act in 1972. The Act established a framework for a new local government structure, but individual authorities needed to apply to Parliament for their own private bills. The chairman of committee's consideration of these bills ensured the effective scrutiny of this highly complex legislation. My lords, Lord Listowel also sat for many years as a Deputy Speaker of your Lordship's House. Indeed, his friendly face was a familiar sight on your Lordship's woolsack right up until 17th of July last year. Your Lordships will remember, those of you who were in the House at that time, that he worked particularly long hours during the early 1970s, when the House sat far later, far more often than perhaps has recently been the case. The chairman of committees indeed tells me, my lords, that after Lord Listowel's last sitting on the woolstack, he wrote to say what a joy it had been to sit and feel wanted at his age. My Lords, he remained on the panel of Deputy Speakers right up until the day of his death. As a man, Lord Listowel, I think it is fair to say, was held in as high a regard as any member of your Lordship's house. He was notoriously kind and gentle and an unfailing friend to all of your Lordships, no matter where they sat in this house. My Lords, I can say without fear of contradiction that he will be sorely missed. My Lords, I'm sure that your Lordships would wish to join me in giving our very best wishes to Lady Listowel and her family, and to pay tribute to a much-loved figure in your Lordship's house.
My Lords, I'm delighted indeed to follow the Leader of the House in paying tribute to my noble friend Lord Listowel. My Lords, it's a somewhat sobering reflection to realise that he has been a member, or was a member, of this House longer than I have been on this planet. My Lords, it is always sobering when that thing happens. I remember being in a case not too long ago where I discovered that another barrister in the case had actually taken silk. He had been called to the bar 5 years before I was born, so longevity is something, I suppose, that one has to get used to in this house, but it is a somewhat sad event, my Lords, when one has to perform what we're trying to do this afternoon. My Lords, he was a well-known, prominent and much respected member of your Lordship's House. His political career was, as the Leader of the House has said, it was long, it was distinguished, and it was varied. My Lords, it was based firmly, I think, upon his commitment to, as he perceived it, the Labour Party and the principles on which that party was based. My Lords, it is said that he went up to Balliol, but his father removed him from Balliol after he'd been there for a year because he had shown dangerous left-wing tendencies and had started making radical speeches in the Union. My Lords, having been removed from Oxford, he was then sent to Cambridge. My Lords, I am told that Cambridge proved no less subversive than Oxford had done, and his political career followed from that. My Lords, I think it's right to say that he was, apart from the noble Lord Hailsham, the last survivor of the coalition government. Indeed, my Lords, he was Labour Chief Whip in the House of Lords from 1940 to 1944. 1944, he became Deputy Leader of the House, I think to the Lord Privy grandfather, who at that time was the Leader of the House. And then, my Lords, with the change of government in 1945, he moved into ministerial office. My Lords, I suppose he'll be remembered most for his contribution to colonial and Commonwealth affairs. The noble Lord, the Leader of the House, referred to his time as Secretary of State for India, and indeed he played a crucial role in the run-up to independence of that country. My Lords, later he became Governor-General of Ghana, where he struck up, it seems, a quite remarkably warm relationship with President Nkrumah. My Lords, I don't think that was a relationship that necessarily followed from all President Nkrumah's relationships with British politicians or governors-general or ministers. But certainly in respect of my noble friend Lord Listowel, I think there was deep respect and indeed affection felt on both sides. My Lords, the noble Lords referred to his time as the chairman of committees. He was, I think, the first Labour chairman of committees in your Lordship's House, and he served his time there, I think, with distinction. Sat regularly on the woolsack, my Lords, until last summer. I have one personal memory of Lord Listowel, which I treasure. My Lords, the first election I ever fought was in 1959 in South Kensington. It's not a part of the country, my Lords, noted for its socialist affiliations. It was very difficult to get anybody to come down and make a major speech, insofar as one did make major speeches in South Kensington, on behalf of the cause. My Lord Listowel was approached. He accepted. I well remember a packed meeting in Kensington Town Hall where Lord Listowel, with perhaps uncharacteristic robustness, took on the record of the then Conservative government. My Lord, lest it be thought that it had a great effect upon the result, I can only say that with his efforts and mine, I saved my deposit by 40 votes. But, my lords, he was, as the Lord Privy Seal said, a man of quite extraordinary politeness, kindness, patience, and natural courtesy. My lord, he will indeed be greatly missed by the House as a whole. He was a very distinguished and assiduous servant of the House. Those of us on these benches, my lords, would, I think, wish to remember him as a good and loyal colleague who served his party and served his country well. And can I, on behalf of my noble friends, join with the Lord Privy Seal in expressing our deepest sympathy to Lady Listowel and her family.
Lord Listowel was, until almost last week, when I think I remember last seeing him, living history, expressed with a quiet dignity and modest sense of service which had infused his whole long life. A peer, as we've been told, for nearly 66 years, a junior minister in Churchill's Grand Coalition, deputy leader of your Lordship's House over half a century ago, a Secretary of State under Attlee, who later, when he had discharged his task of getting rid of the charge for which that Department of State was created, was content to become Parliamentary Undersecretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. That shows a true sense of humble duty. Although he later re-blossomed as both a successful Governor-General and as Chairman of committees here for 11 years. It was a great record of unself-seeking service. He will be much missed in this House. I join with my noble friends in expressing sympathy to his widow and strongly support the motion.
Not a member of this House when the noble and very distinguished Earl was the leader of the House. I would like, I'm sure, all the crossbenchers to join in the tributes that have already been paid by so many of the thoughts of so many of those who knew him many years ago and latterly. But as convener of the crossbench peers, I was in the fortunate position of getting to know him better when he was chairman of committees and also for some time, as has been said today, deputy speaker. And we on these benches always admired his impartiality, he was always tremendously patient and showed courtesy and lots of kindnesses which nobody really knew anything about. He was more popular because he was modest and loved as a result on all sides of the House. We on the crossbenches admired until I think the noble Lord Richard said it was the 17th of July that he came in and sat in the House and was at times on the woolsack. We shall always remember him from these benches with affection and great respect.
From the bench of bishops, to add a word of gratitude and respect to the late Earl. We valued a colleague who, as long ago as as long ago as 1931, had written a book on the values of life. A philosopher who was both wise and good. In the true sense of the word, a philosopher prince. He will be missed, and we are grateful for all he has given to the country and to this house in all these years.
As I knew Billy Listowel before most people in this house were born, I want to record one of what his father regarded as a dangerous and disagreeable left-wing tendency. He formed a group of people, of which I'm ashamed to say I wasn't one, to try and live on the dole, and they did for about 5 years.
Lord Hare.
Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on your paper.